you took Escape from Tarkov and Stalker and mashed them together into a single player top-down experience, then you would get Zero Siva. This is a game you may not have heard about, but I'm going to change that. If you do like this video, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and check me out on Twitch. Links in the description below. Zero Siva is a game that is clearly very, very heavily influenced by Tarkov. From the gun modding to the quest system, even to the way the raids are laid out with their bosses, the stash management, and more. It does have elements of Stalker worked into it with anomalies and radiation and mutants and creatures, and it does it incredibly well. And Zero Siva really is a game that you're going to want to play if you're into either Tarkov or Stalker and like the graphical style. Zero Siva is made by one man, Luca Carbonera, who founded the Cabo studio, and then it's published by Modern Wolf. Zero Siva is intense, and it is difficult, and it can really, really get your heart rate going. So let's go over some of the features in the game. There is a faction system in the game, and you will interact with different factions at different levels as you play. The full system is not currently part of the game, but it is coming soon according to your Pip-Boy style device. You have the Green Army, which you will interact with a hell of a lot starting out. They exist in the bunker that you live in and stay in by your hideout, and they function very much like the Russian army in this universe of Zero Siva. Then you have the Crimson. Crimson are essentially the Green Army's enemies, and they function very much like the US or NATO forces in this universe. Then after the Green Army and the Crimson, you have the more independent factions. You have the Bandits, which will just shoot you on sight. You have the Hunters, which will also just shoot you on sight, but are definitely some of the best equipped enemies in the game, and can really be a step up if you manage to get a kill on one early on. And then you have the Scientists. Scientists appear very rarely, and you can tell who they are by their brightly coloured hazmat suits, and they have a tendency to drop keys quite regularly, but they won't actually aggress on you. But that doesn't mean you can't kill them. In Siva, you have a PDA device, Pip-Boy, as I like to call it, because it reminds me very much of the Fallout one, that you do most of your management from. So in this Pip-Boy, you have your map, which of course is currently not available in the hideout. But then you also have your day, time, your stamina, your health, and then your quest log, so that you can check on your quests. You have a very, very, very in-depth and dedicated stat screen. It tells you how many hunts you've done, how many you survived, your survival rate, your best survival streak, how much money you've made from a single hunt. It goes very much in depth about everything you've done. Then you have your stats. Now, stats are very, very, very important in Zero Siva. You have a bunch of different stats that have essentially a lower tier and a higher tier. So you start with a lower tier of your stats, and those are, you know, like stamina, perception, agility, strength, endurance, things like that. And then once you max those out, you then get to pick specialisms. So for instance, I have taken the Mule specialism, the Loot Goblin specialism, the Operator specialism, the Workaholic specialism, Field Medic specialism, Modder specialism, and the Nutritionist specialism. And then those level up until they're full, and then that's it. There is no more extra tiers after that. You also have your management of your hideout. So you can say my storage is up in the top right there, my ammo producer is over there to the left, my workshop is down there to the bottom, and in the empty spaces you can install things like infirmaries, bedrooms, kitchens, recycling centers, scavengers, forges, radio stations, shooting ranges, gyms, and gardens. And then of course the faction page, which is currently of no use at all. The gunplay in Zero Siva is super satisfying. There are two types of scopes that you can use that completely change how your guns function. First off, you have reflex sights, your iron sights, your red dots and the like. and those will give you the ability to see completely all around you and to line up shots that follow a trajectory path over time as they fire towards wherever your mouse is aiming. And then you have your scopes, so anything that has a zoom function on it functions like a scope, and then most of your screen goes black except for where you're aiming, and it allows you to extend further than you can normally see. Now, one of the big things about using scopes is that if you click exactly on an enemy rather than just somewhere in a line where it will hit them, then the bullet no longer has travel time and becomes hit scan and immediately hits its target. There are pluses and minuses to using each type, but I generally find it best to run a bolt action as my secondary with a scope on, while having a primary, more automatic weapon for close quarters using a red dot or a reflex or the like. And of course, like any extraction shooter, one of the big parts of the game is looting, and the game manages your loot capacity in two ways. One is inventory slots and the other is weight. Now, inventory slots stay the same throughout the game, however your weight changes based on a bunch of different factors: what backpack you're using, what skills you have leveled up, and what your food and drink levels are like. So it's always best to stay nice and full when it comes to your thirst and your hunger, to make sure you can carry the most out of a raid and make those rubles. The best loot is often found behind locked doors, which means you're going to need to find keys, like this safe area you can access once you've killed Kibba in the mall, I know Tarkov players, and gotten the gun store cage key. There is multiple safes and weapon crates and attachment crates and all sorts of goodies. There are a great many more features to Zero Siva, and I don't want to spoil them all for you, but I highly recommend this game, even in its early access state. Cabo Studio Luga Carbonera is going to continue updating this regularly, and in fact there's a new update due very soon as of the uploading of this video. There is currently about 40 to 50 hours worth of content based on the tasks alone, and of course that can vary massively with the raid system being quicker or slower due to RNG, due to the things that happen on the map, and maybe the fact that you can double some things up, or maybe sometimes that you end up dying 10 times in a row. That is the beauty of Zero Siva, much like it is any extraction shooter. This is a passion project for sure by him, and it's definitely one to keep your eye on. Highly recommend it. The price point is very affordable, and hey, if you didn't know about this game before, you do now. If you did like this video, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and check out my Twitch in the description below. I'll be back next week with another game that you may not have heard of. Stay tuned.